Hi everybody, I am sitting here with somebody running for school committee, yoo-hoo! And her name is Kerri Ames. Hey Kerri,
Hi.
how are you? Good to have you here.
Nice to see you again.
So, Kerri, I've asked every candidate that I've talked to this same question. I will ask you. Why in the heck are you doing this? And again already.
And again, I know. I'm running for re-election because 1 year wasn't quite enough.
Okay.
The first year was really the learning curve,
Sure.
to be honest, for anybody in this role. And I believe I have done a good job at helping every stakeholder understand the process, and I want to continue to do that.
Okay, and when you talk about stakeholders, are you talking about the community? Are you talking about teachers? Are you talking about
Everybody involved in the school system, from the
Okay.
taxpayer who doesn't have any children in the school system
Right.
to the kindergartner who is entering the school system for the first time. It's a difficult role sitting and when you're not involved, you don't understand what the school committee purview is and what it isn't. And that's what I've really learned over this past year. And I've always had the role, I believe, of making sure that out of all of the decisions, every person was thought of before that decision was made in my mind. And I want to continue doing that.
Oh, that's excellent. So when you're working as a school, and it's called the school committee,
Yes.
it's not the school individual people that get together, right? So how do you come together as a committee to make those decisions?
That's
for the
actually
school?
was something that was difficult to learn for me. Was sometimes you have more power outside of the school committee, because school committee is open meeting law and committee work, and you can't. You have to give up your own. Sometimes you might vote against something, but once you, which I did often, but once you did, it became the school committee's decision, and now you have to defend it. And
I see.
that was never a problem for me because I felt that I could express myself on why I
Sure.
voted a certain way. But that is a little bit different than being just a parent or a community member.
I see.
Even actively involved parents in the PTA, they're our biggest voice in the school system, and they actually have a lot of power, and they use it well.
So explain to me though, and some folks might wonder this as well, open meeting law, how does that pertain to the school committee?
So we can only discuss things at the table. So if, let's say something new is coming before us, that's where our discussion happens. After the meeting, or before the meeting, we no longer discuss it. So you can't say, well, what do you think about this, once you're away from the table. So
if you meet somebody in the grocery, let's say you meet another committee member in the grocery store, or you decide you'll have coffee together because you like each other and you're friends, and one of you says, gee, what do you think about this? You can't do that. Is that correct?
Well, you can have a one-on-one conversation, but you can't
see.
have more than
Okay.
that. So you have to be cognizant of the fact, well, did I already discuss this with somebody else? Did I do this? So so this past year, I've been very clear that as much as I might like somebody on the Board of Selectmen or the Finance Committee or the School Committee, I just don't discuss things anymore unless it's not in a meeting.
Sure.
To protect the process, because that process is important.
Right, absolutely. So tell me what you think. I know you've been there a year and you're running again. What have you done though in this year? What do you think what are the accomplishments that you as a member of the school committee or the school committee itself has done to really kind of push forward the education system in the town?
I think under Dr. Canfield's leadership, that Project Lead the Way is probably going to be seen as one of our biggest accomplishments, because although you don't turn around enrollment on a dime, I think that is going to entice children to stay in the sandwich school system, which is very important.
Is that because of the STEM?
The STEM, and then the Project Lead the Way kind of continues that on throughout the high school years. So
I see.
in the science, technology, the fact that we have supported the volleyball program and the Knights Theater Company, and offered these great, offered the administrators to think of innovative program. Like, Mr. Smith came up with the box program in the Forest Hill School.
All right, so explain what that is.
That's a forest school program that the kids come in, and I want to say it's by Reeboks, but I'm not 100% sure, but they really manipulate and build designs and things at a young age, but it's play.
Right.
Ms. Hill has done fantastic things with programming, and I don't want to take credit for what they've done, but the fact that we've been able to support their innovations.
Sure, and recognize it.
Yes,
Yeah.
and Dr. Boris has brought in such great AP programs that aren't available elsewhere. So that is, I think, has been a great accomplishment that we've been allowed to do. Another thing that I personally did was, and this is going to sound foolish, but looking from...
Trust me, it won't sound foolish at all, because
well,
I don't think people know enough about what's going on in the schools, to be honest.
So, you know, when they do a field trip, let's say, and a lot of times the chaperone or whomever would get their trip, right? Which is great because you need volunteers.
Right.
However, state ethics laws prohibit you for anything over $50. So that was something my first time, I was like, wait a minute. And so being able to work with Dr. Canfield and say, let's work and figure out a system for this. You know, let's not stop it, let's just figure out the way to do it right. And he was so receptive and really worked forward. So what do you do now? I'm sorry?
So how does that work?
They created a process for the teachers to declare it so that none of that happens anymore.
Oh,
so
that's great.
Yeah. And the fact, I think this is actually credit to the prior school committee before I was on, but in our school committee, the reconfiguration. As a school committee member, I did not receive one negative comment this year. And as a parent, I was concerned too. I had children in 2 different schools.
Right.
And
You mean because of STEM?
No, when they went from the K to 2 to the 3 to 6, that was all this year.
Yeah.
And the prior school committee set the groundwork, and this school committee really went forward with it. And that is another huge accomplishment, I think. Not to get one negative comment in the grocery store anywhere.
Is unusual.
For that, I mean, that was a huge move if you think about it.
Of course it was. Now, just explain, because you have to understand some of our watchers may not have kids in school, so they don't even know what you're talking about. So what was the big change this year?
So the big change this year, this past September, was we went from 3 K to 6 schools.
3 K to 6 schools.
To Forestdale being preschool to grade 2, Oak Ridge being grades 3 to 6, and the high school 7 to 12.
Right.
So we had...
And closing the wing school.
And closing the wing school. Well, yes, closing the wing school to children, but keeping moving central office there.
Right.
I believe our teachers did a fantastic job. And again, having somebody in the school system helps. It took 2 weeks for my daughter to stop saying the wing kids. The Forestdale children. Right. They're in my school.
Right.
That was within 2 weeks. It was no longer that. And that is a very huge accomplishment that our teachers did, and they should be commended for that.
Sure. And you know, it was always, the other thing too is I always think it was segmented. I had a son, my youngest was in, I think he was in 6th grade at the time, or 4th grade, whatever it was. And they were talking about all these different configurations. Now he's a grown-up now, grown-up man with kids of his own and everything. But they were in the process of changing things over, and they were building the Oak Ridge School, and they were building the Forestdale School. And it became known as, oh, well, your son is in the good school, he's still in the wing school. Right. And now to have, to me, as somebody who's not a parent anymore, I'm a grandparent now, but now knowing that kids are, no, you just go to the Forestdale School, or no, you go to the Oak Ridge School because you're of that age. Right. Has nothing to do where you live or your socioeconomic background.
Right.
It's just, that's how it's done.
Right, and the kids have been so great.
Is that right?
They really, and I can only speak for 6th grade at Oak Ridge.
Yeah, because that's where you are.
In kindergarten, kindergartners, they didn't know anything different. Yeah. But the kids really intermingled a lot. The administration did a great job of making sure that one classroom wasn't imbalanced. Yeah. And they really thought it through.
Nice.
And parents, I know everybody, again, as a parent, was kind of like, what's going to happen?
Yeah, yeah.
But parents embraced it, and parents actually began to see
how it works.
Hey, now my son really loved that kid on the soccer team, but they didn't go to school together.
Right.
You know, so that really has been a tremendous success, I think, of the school committee.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And what about the pool?
I don't like that.
No, well, we have to talk about it. The
I think the pool
loves
is wonderful.
the pool.
I know the town loves the pool. And I am a supporter for community use of the pool. I do not think the school committee should have spent so much time and effort on it. Right. Personally, I think that should have, and I understand that there's different dynamics. I wasn't on the subcommittee for that, so I don't know everything that went on behind the scenes.
Sure.
To me, community use of the pool, how that all happened, should have been through the rec department.
Right.
And that's nothing. Jay and Stephanie spearheaded that. They did a fantastic job. but the school committee's job is really education.
Right.
No offense to everybody. I've just lost all the pool votes.
No, I don't think so.
But that was just my thought.
I actually sit on the town rec committee.
Okay.
You know, and I agree with you. And I think actually that, and I'm not going to put words in his mouth. I don't know, because I know he has his plate full. Guy Boucher, who
Yes.
has his plate full. However, I don't disagree that he thinks those kinds of things should be under his purview, but unfortunately in this community, they're not. And it's inside of the school,
So-
which is another issue.
I understand that.
Yeah.
However, so the fields are under at the wing school.
I know,
So-
well, and that's a whole other issue.
Exactly, but in my mind, the rec department has the funding mechanism. They have the payment mechanism. Remember the community school, the huge fiasco with the community school?
Right.
And I know the subcommittee has taken great pains to make sure that process isn't repeated. So
Right,
this is
right.
not in any way dimming what they've done.
Uh-huh.
My own thought was throughout the entire process, and I think
Sure.
I was quite clear about it, was
Sure.
just great job, but we need to be focused on
Education.
of our teachers, our administrators, our students, our parents.
Right. Right.
That's where the focus should
But
be.
that's a wonderful thing to have as your banner that you carry. You may not agree with everybody else on the committee, but that's a good thing to be carrying. So
Yeah.
it's
It
good.
happened quite frequently, let's face it.
Pardon me?
I don't mind speaking up when I feel that something.
No, and that's a good
is
thing,
different.
I think. You want a school committee member that's going to say what you think, because you're representing folks. There are people who think like you too, and so
The-
you're representing
The
that
best thing
education.
about this school committee is that we can have those disagreements
Mhm.
and it never gets personal. It's we walk away and we're laughing and chit-chatting about other things.
Right, right.
So, I remember during one, I said to one of the committee members, I'm sorry, you just didn't convince me. And they're like, don't worry about it. Like,
Yeah.
You voted how you felt, and that's what I've always
Right.
done.
Right. Well, now tell me a little bit about Kerri Ames. So who are you, Kerri
Who I am?
Ames?
I am the office manager of Baxter Crane,
Mhm.
which is a heavy-duty crane system out of Hyannis.
Yeah.
I do that full-time.
Mhm.
I am a
So you're-
wife.
You're a working mom.
I'm a working mom, so those
Like
half
everybody else?
days, I'm on your side. I am married to a firefighter here in town.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, he grew up here in Sandwich, and we have 2 children, one who will be going into STEM and one who is in a specialized classroom at Forestdale, but will be going into 1st grade.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, where do you come from originally?
I moved to Sandwich as a junior in high school from Natick.
Oh my God, culture shock.
In 88, 87, yeah. I came from Flutie. I don't know if anyone knows Flutie, but I came
Yeah.
from Flutieville, and
Yeah.
Sandwich had one street light. Quaker Meeting House was a dirt road and no football team.
That's what you knew.
That's what I came into, and that was
Yeah.
quite of a shock. But
Yeah.
I've grown. I can't imagine living
So
anywhere
when
else.
did you graduate from Sandwich High School?
89.
89. You graduated the same year as my son,
Justin.
Justin.
Yep.
Right. That's correct.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and I don't know why all of a sudden I just put that together, because we've talked before.
Yep.
So what do you want to do this night? What are your big things? So let's say you're elected.
Yes.
What's your banner? What are you going to carry? I mean, I know you're going to carry banners on lots of different things, but what do you want to see the school committee accomplish in the next couple of years?
I personally am hoping that the interim superintendent is filled quickly, and the move to hire the permanent superintendent happens sooner rather than later. So that would be one of my goals.
Is there a time frame you see?
I'm not, again, my viewpoint seems to be different than other members on the committee.
Doesn't matter, but
They plan on starting the process, I believe, in the fall, and hoping to have somebody by next July. I believe, don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what their focus is. I would prefer to get somebody in to be as soon invested in all that as soon as possible.
I see.
I'd also like to work, I had started to work with Mr. Bridges, and then life got complicated for everybody on with the school committee, with resignations and things like that.
Right.
But we had really had a goal of working with the Sandwich Emergency Services and having them be in the classroom more with special education students, so that if they're called to a child who has autism or Down syndrome, that police officer or fire officer or fireman knows that child, and that child knows them, so that they can de-escalate a situation. So that would be something I would hope Now that Matt's retiring, maybe he would work with me on that a little bit to get that again. That's a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. And then the third would be, again, just to continue offering innovative programs to keep kids in Sandwich, because children who choose outside, parents who choose outside of Sandwich, they do this so for personal reasons, and I would never say to somebody, don't apply here, here, or here. And, my child's not there yet. She might come to me and say, Mom, I want to go to this school.
Right.
That's a
Right.
parenting decision,
Right.
and I don't think they should be vilified anywhere for making that decision. But when you look at what Sandwich has today, compared to reading Harlequin romances in study hall in the 1980s, there is no reason for a child not to find something at Sandwich High School that's going to speak to them.
Right.
And getting that out there, promoting that, so parents see, you might not be in tonight's theater company, you might not be an athlete, but you know what, there's this art program, or there's this
there's a radio program.
There's a radio program. Remember that back in the 80s when they had that radio program playing during the school day?
I know.
Getting that back, and getting that promoted, because I don't think people realize that stuff is available, that they think, oh, I have to go here because I'm going to get, my child's going to be challenged. They can be challenged to the degree you want them to be at Sandwich. And I think that's important to get out there, so that would be another goal.
Well, I had 3 kids. My oldest was Justin, who graduated with you. And I have 3 kids, and they're all graduated from Sandwich High School. Granted, one I thought was going to drive me crazy, but as all kids think you're going to drive you crazy. But they're all 3 successful. They all 3 got a basic, good education in the Sandwich school system.
When you look at where the students went to college last year,
unbelievable.
It's impressive. And I think Sandwich, how many children were inducted into the Honor Society last year?
Right.
It really, and even if your child, because I was not an honor student, even if you are not,
it's okay.
That's not your thing.
Right.
If you are just that student who's going to school and doing the best you can, Sandwich is there for you. They're there to support whatever academic. One of the things I talked to Ms. Wickland about in the fall was, again, I have a child who has special education, so that always tends to be where my go-to, because that's what I know. But I said to her, what are we offering the geniuses?
There you go.
And what do? All of a sudden now we have AP programs, know. So Sandwich really thinks of the child that needs special education, the child that needs the AP program, and everything in between. And our educators need to be, they are so thoughtful, and they really consider the students, and I think that's wonderful.
Oh, that is terrific. You're right. And when you think about your next tenure, do you think that our school population is declining?
Correct.
So what do you think that will mean going down the road? How much we're spending per pupil? Will it increase?
Well, we're already spending some of the low. I think we're number 4 or 3 for the lowest spending. Sandwich, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck.
Yeah. But that's a good point.
You are.
That's a good point.
And one of the most illuminating things to me as a school committee member, and one of the things I really understand is Sandwich has fees. Sandwich has budget constraints. And the selectmen said, this is what you can spend. And the school committee did that.
Right.
Upper Cape and Sturgis don't have fees. We aren't in charge of Sturgis's budget. Upper Cape had almost 7% increase in tax dollars.
Right. So,
of course, that's going to make them more desirable. And I am not saying that the schools should be better funded than the municipality. I think Sandwich, historically, as someone who's been here since the 80s, takes Yankee frugal.
Right.
And we are going to be Yankee frugal. And so Sandwich is doing the best they can with that. And I think realigning the schools, looking at that, the high school teachers are teaching or mentoring the STEM teachers. I think Dr. Canfield has already proactively said, I understand the population's changing, and I'm going to make sure our staffing is appropriate for that. So that would be continued, just figuring out ways to be innovative for the staffing.
Well, I know when Dr. Canfield came in and he did so many changes, as a person who no longer has children in the school, I thought they were fabulous changes. I know there was a lot of disconcertation. You know, people were very concerned. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? There's a STEM. What does this mean? You know, however, all my dealings with him, which have been very superficial, it just seemed like he knew where he wanted to take the school, and I hope the next superintendent follows in those footsteps as a
Dr. Canfield,
taxpayer.
If you remember what Dr. Canfield and that school committee walked into,
Right.
You might want to be just amazed that anybody ran or took that job.
That's true.
He definitely had a vision for 2020.
Yeah.
And one of the nicest things I heard this year was a new parent that was moving in was, what's this STEM thing? And this was on Facebook. And one of the biggest opponents of STEM, the most vocal on social media, replied back, my son loves it, and I stand correct. Like, I was so nervous, and I realized that was a parent, not a student.
Right.
And that was one of the most heartening things for me to read, because I was like, you know what? All of us were worried.
Right.
Right? But Dr. Canfield had a vision, and whether you like what he did or did not like what he did, you can't deny the results.
Right.
Lower spending,
Right.
better class sizes, and so all of that. The next superintendent, the interim and then the permanent, they are going to be facing budget constraints.
Right.
We need to make sure we have somebody that understands that and also understands the small town dynamics.
Right.
It's
Right.
different up in different towns that are larger. When I was at a conference, and somebody from the small town in Western Mass was talking about how they had such a constrained budget. And it was over double what sandwiches is. And I thought, dude, calm down. So the next superintendent is going to have to understand. Sorry,
Right.
I'm always inappropriate like this.
Yeah. No, that's not being. No, that's not inappropriate at all. That's
just how I am.
That's fine. You're great.
But the next superintendent is really going to have to be cognizant of the fact that you have a very involved town.
Mm-hmm.
They might not show up at every meeting, but they know what's going on.
Right.
You have a very involved finance and board of selectmen on how your school is going to work. So not only do you answer to the school committee, you have these other, and I think the school.
Although the school committee is on its own.
It is. However, I'll be honest, if you look at the board of selectmen or finance committee, they take no pains at making sure that they
Tell you their opinion.
Tell you their opinion.
Right.
And I think the school committee's job, and that's one way I wonder if we've been effective, us and the previous committee. The superintendent should never be held accountable to those other committees.
Right.
That's
your job.
It's our job, and we need to do a better job at protecting our superintendent and administrators from those. And I'm not saying they're attacking.
No.
I'm saying that they're doing their job, but it should become. Because it's the checks and balances.
Right,
they want to make sure that we are spending their tax dollars wisely.
Right.
But that's something that we need to be better at.
Well, don't you think, though, in this day and age, with social media and all the communication out there, we're all supposed to be communicating. Don't you think sometimes part of the problem is communication itself? So that whether it's the school committee or whatever group in town.
Right.
We're also in a town with a lot of older people. That's why the schools are declining in population. So because we have all these older people, if the school committee doesn't get the information out there in a positive manner, all they're going to hear is the bad stuff and none of the good stuff will get through.
I agree with that. And I think that there needs to be a more harmonious relationship between the three boards. I think that we need to work better at, instead of defending the schools,
right?
We need to be promoting the schools.
I
and I
agree
think
with
that's
you.
just something that is definitely something we're trying to do. And I think we are getting better at it. But you have to remember, if you think about it, we had 4 brand new people last year, so we were all learning what we can say, what we can't say, and that type of thing.
Right. Well, it is kind of amazing to me that schools in general, I think, do very poorly at promoting themselves and all the good stuff they do. And that goes for how good some of the I mean, in every business, if we talk outside of, like government and if you look at a business, let's take your business, for example. You've got good operators of machinery and you've got crummy operators of machinery. You hope they're all good, but out there's one or two that might, whatever. That's true in schools too. You've got really fabulous teachers and you got one or two that you kind of go, oh my goodness.
Right.
However, we don't promote enough. All you hear about are the one or two that are not so good, as opposed to hearing about the 25 that are so good.
I think that's where our PTA has been fantastic this year, the PTA and the PTSA at the high school. Because it's great that parents involved in the school.
Right.
But when they start promoting it outward.
Yes.
Having the PTA utilizing their Facebook page, the PTSA, right. Hey, look at this, and making sure it's on Sandwich News. It's everywhere in Sandwich. Right. I think back years ago in the local newspapers where the schools were more focused, and now it's like a quick 2-page thing.
Right.
So definitely promoting it within the town so that the people who don't have children in the school system see, hey, wow, this is something to be proud of. Because I have to be honest, if you have a working school system, if you have a well-involved parent and student community, you have less crime, less drugs, and your house is valued at more.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right.
So even though, and I completely understand, I mean, my mother-in-law is on a fixed income. She does, I have, brothers and sister-in-laws who don't have children and are paying taxes in this town.
Right.
I need to make sure those people see the value in the town.
Right.
And the way to do that is to say, look at how great we're doing, and because we're doing this, your home is valued at more.
Right.
You live in a better neighborhood. You're not afraid to leave your window open. That type of thing.
And that's what's going to make the difference in how people view the schools too, by getting that information out. That it's a positive. It's positive for our children and welcoming the community into the schools as well.
And our students do so much. I was at a Special Olympics event, and the Sandwich High School basketball team gave up their entire Saturday morning to teach children how to play basketball.
How great is that?
We have so many. We have the Model UN children that are going out and promoting. We have the Project 360, I think it's called. I might have gotten that one wrong. Where they're going up to the State House and all that. And that's promoting Sandwich. When you have colleges and other towns coming to Sandwich to view our programs, that's kind of amazing. I don't know how many other
And you're a part of it.
Yeah.
And that's great.
It's remotely. I mean, the school committee is, but we shouldn't take credit because it's really
teachers.
The teachers and the students and the administrators that are doing the work. We're just making sure that the bills are being paid and that no one's getting arrested.
And that's always a good thing.
That's what I look at it that. We're the check. We're the
Right.
check to make sure you're following the rules. This is all well and good. Go forth and prosper.
Right.
And
that's a good attitude, I think. Well, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to wish you luck.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thanks.